Imagine this. A black woman enters a high-end office building, dressed sharp and exuding confidence. Yet, she's immediately stopped by a security guard who singles her out, questioning why she's there. She calmly explains, but his skepticism lingers, and you can feel the tension in the air. What starts as an uncomfortable moment of bias quickly takes a jaw-dropping turn when the woman reveals her identity. She's not just anyone, she's his district police captain. The guard's face changes instantly, and the power dynamics flip in the blink of an eye. But how did it get to this point? What happens next in this tense and eye-opening encounter? This story will make you think twice about assumptions, biases, and the way we judge others based on appearances. Stick around, because the moment of truth will leave you speechless. As the security guard stood frozen, trying to process what he had just heard, the woman didn't flinch. She remained calm, her expression steady but unmistakably firm. Moments earlier, she had walked into the building on official business, but instead of a warm welcome, she had been met with suspicion. The guard had immediately questioned her presence, insisting she show ID before allowing her to proceed. While she complied, his demeanor made it clear that he didn't believe she belonged there. What the guard didn't know was that this woman wasn't a stranger to situations like these. As a police captain, she had spent years navigating assumptions and stereotypes, both in and out of uniform. But today was different. Today, she wasn't just any visitor. She was here to conduct a surprise inspection of security protocols. What started as a routine assignment was quickly turning into a test of character for both of them. The guard shifted uneasily, his confidence now visibly shaken. He glanced around, as if searching for support or a way to recover from the growing tension. The woman, still calm, watched him closely. She had seen this reaction before, the mix of discomfort and embarrassment when someone realized their bias had been exposed. But this wasn't the moment to address it head-on. She simply asked, "Are you going to let me through, or shall I call someone to assist?" His hand hovered over his radio, unsure of what to do. In his mind, he replayed that earlier exchange, the way he had scrutinized her ID, the tone he used to assert authority. It hadn't seemed wrong at the time, but now he wondered if it had been. Meanwhile, other employees walked by, casting curious glances. Some seemed to recognize her, whispering to one another. The tension thickened, and the guard began to realize that this encounter wasn't just about a badge. It was about perception, respect, and the choices we make when no one's watching. The air felt heavier as the security guard hesitated, beads of sweat forming on his brow. He finally stepped aside, but not before muttering, "I'll need to verify this with my supervisor." The woman gave a small nod, her calm demeanor unwavering. "Go ahead," she replied coolly. She stood there, watching as he fumbled with his radio, his voice unsteady as he called in the situation. Employees passing by slowed down, their murmurs growing louder. The guard noticed it too, the way some of them seemed to look at him, others at her, as though they were piecing the situation together. He could feel the weight of their judgment. This wasn't how he had imagined his day going. He wasn't a bad person, he thought, just doing his job. But then, why did this feel so wrong? The woman, meanwhile, was quietly observing, her mind racing. She knew her identity would eventually come to light. But what mattered now wasn't her rank. It was whether this guard, like so many others she'd encountered, would recognize the deeper issue at play. The room buzzed with tension as his supervisor's voice came through the radio. She braced herself for the moment that would change everything. The radio crackled as the supervisor's voice came through, calm but direct. "Let her through immediately," he ordered. The guard stiffened, his face flushed with confusion and embarrassment. He'd opened his mouth to respond, but the supervisor cut him off. "You need to know who you're dealing with. She's not just here on business, she's the district police captain. And if you've delayed her unnecessarily, I suggest you address that properly." The guard's heart sank. His mind raced, replaying the entire interaction, every word he'd said, every look he'd given her. He turned back to the woman, but she didn't look angry, just resolute. Before he could speak, Another layer of the situation unfolded. Two senior executives from the building appeared, rushing toward her. They greeted her with clear respect, apologizing for the delay. But instead of brushing past them, she paused and turned to the guard. "I'm not upset with you," she said, her tone measured. "But this situation isn't just about me. It's about how you treat anyone who walks through that door. How you judged me today. What made you think I didn't belong?" Her question hung in the air, shifting the attention back to him. Suddenly, this wasn't just about her rank or authority. It was about something much deeper, and now all eyes were on his response. The room fell silent, the weight of her question pressing down on everyone present. The guard looked down, struggling to find the right words. I didn't mean any harm," he said quietly. "I was just trying to do my job." She nodded, her expression softening just enough to show she wasn't there to humiliate him. But then, with a steady voice, she replied, "Doing your job is important, but so is recognizing your bias. What if I wasn't who I am? Would you have treated me differently if I looked like someone else?" Before he could respond, the unexpected happened. One of the executives, who had been silently standing by, suddenly interjected. "Captain," he said, his voice laced with nervousness, "I think there's more you should know." He hesitated, then admitted, "This isn't the first time we've had complaints about him profiling people at the entrance." The revelation hit like a thunderclap, and the guard's face drained of color. The captain turned to the executive, her sharp gaze now on him. "And what have you done about it?" she asked pointedly. The tables turned again, and the room's tension reached its peak. The executive stumbled over his words, trying to explain. But before he could finish, the captain raised a hand to stop him. "Enough," she said firmly. "It's clear that this is a bigger issue than just today. I'll be filing my full report, and trust me, things are going to change around here." With that, she turned back to the guard. "This isn't the end for you, but it is a moment to learn. What you do next will define you more than this mistake." As she walked away, the guard stood frozen, realizing the gravity of what had just happened. The entire situation had unraveled into something far greater than he could have imagined, leaving everyone in the room with a lot to think about. As the captain left the building, the silence in the lobby was deafening. The guard stood rooted in place, her parting words echoing in his mind. He knew this was more than just a bad day. It was a wake-up call. The executives exchanged uneasy glances, already dreading the fallout of her report, but deep down, they also knew she was right. Change was overdue. Later, the captain reflected on the encounter as she prepared her report. It wasn't about punishing anyone, but about addressing a systemic issue that extended beyond this one interaction. She hoped her actions would spark real conversations and lead to meaningful change, not just for that building, but for others like it. The story wasn't just about bias or authority. It was about accountability, growth, and the power of recognizing when it's time to do better. And for everyone involved, it was a moment they wouldn't soon forget.